Hersham Sharania, the Chicago Bulls are releasing Marko Simonovic. Is this a good thing for the Bulls? What does this mean for them moving forward? And is there a player that they could bring in to replace his roster spot? We'll talk about all that and more in today's episode of the Windy City Breeze Sports Talk Daily. Let's go. Now, if you are new to the channel, please like the video. Please subscribe to the page, man. We do talk Chicago sports daily on this channel. It's the only channel talking Chicago sports, how Chicago talks. So make sure that you get in tune with us, man. So Bulls end up releasing Marko Simonovic, which I can't act like we didn't see this coming, right? Like we knew what he was going to be. We knew how this thing was all going to end up. I mean, I spent more time on the Bulls basketball court running back and forth than Marko Simonovic did when I went out there and did that challenge to win that nice Corona cooler. Actually, that cooler is really nice, by the way. Shout out to the Chicago Bulls. Shout out to Corona, man. We need to do a deal out here. Let's get that together. But at the end of the day, right, we're sitting here talking about what does this do for the Bulls? I mean, first things first, I hope that Marko lands on his feet. I think Marko was a situation of the coach really just didn't see what maybe AK saw in the beginning. I think that Marko developed to a point where you could have put him on an NBA floor. I really do, especially with some of the struggles that we saw. Now, it doesn't help that every time he went out there in the short minutes that he went out there, he got dunked on pretty much. He was leading the NBA and getting dunked on for sure. Like there's no way there was somebody out there getting dunked on more than him. Maybe Yuta Watanabe was a close second, but Marko was leading it. So for me, I hope that he lands on his feet. I hope that this was just a situation of Billy Donovan didn't see something in him that maybe is there, and he goes to another coach and becomes a nice role player for a team. I don't think he'll be a star. I never thought that. But I do think that he'll be a nice role player. I think he could be a nice spot-up shooter on a team. He just has to be given that opportunity. Wasn't given that opportunity here in Chicago. I can't even fault Marko for getting cut. Maybe you could fault him for not working enough to get to the league, but I don't know the ins and outs of that, so I can't say that he didn't work hard enough to actually play on the court. But at the end of the day, I don't think we're surprised by this. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time breaking down Marko Simonovic. And if this is a miss for the Bulls, let me know how you guys feel in the comments below about how you feel about Marko being cut. Are you upset that he was cut? Are you upset that he was cut and wasn't given an opportunity to at least see what he can do on an NBA floor, even in some of those throwaway games that we've had? Or are you like me, where you're just like, of course he got cut? Like we saw this coming. We've been calling him a water boy for 4 years, basically, 3 years. But at the end of the day, is there somebody out there that could replace that spot on, and not to say Marko's position exactly, but that could replace that spot on the floor, that roster spot, I should say. And should the Bulls do something like that? Because at the end of the day, there are a lot of pieces on this team that if you add another piece to it, you're taking development away. You've still got Coby White on this team. You've still got Dalen Terry, Patrick Williams, right? There's bodies on this team already. So if you're signing somebody just to go get a body, I don't think that that's the right move either. I don't want to see the Bulls go out there and do that. Maybe if you can find another point guard for cheap, that'd be something interesting. I don't really foresee them doing that at this point, though. I think that kind of maybe. I mean, it's tough, right? Because even with the Javon Carter thing, I love having Javon Carter here. I hope that he plays here for all 3 years of that contract, and he all of a sudden has that same jump that Lonzo Ball did. But at the end of the day, what happens if he twists his ankle and can't go for a couple of days? Do we just go back to sucking, right? So you got to kind of find that guy who's going to be the backup to a Javon Carter. Maybe that's Coby White. Maybe that's Dalen Terry. We'll figure that out as we get into the season. But is there anybody out there on the market that could be interesting for the Chicago Bulls? And the name Trendon Watford keeps popping up. He was waived by the Blazers. And he was waived by the Blazers basically because we've already got a ton of youth on this team. He's an interesting prospect to me because 19 minutes a game, 7 points per game, 39% from the three-point line. So he's adding that shooting in, 4 rebounds a game, 2.1 assists, 5 steals. That is 2022 numbers. He's a guy that the advanced analytics love. I can see a lot of good in a guy like Trendon Watford. But the question for me is, one, is he going to bring you something more than the guys you already have on the team? I mean, he's 6'9", 237. So you're talking about, yet again, another guy who basically is a forward, but when he got in the game, he did give you production. I mean, he was able to shoot the three ball. He wasn't afraid to shoot in most of the games that he played in. I mean, like when he played more than 25 minutes, you saw him put up some pretty good production, especially at the end of that season, right, where there was more, right, like we're kind of just throwing these games away. And so now all of a sudden you've got, 21-point games out of him, 15-point games out of him. He seems like a nice role player, but my biggest question to all the Bulls fans is, do we want to just throw another guy out? And let me know in the comments below, do we want to just sign another guy to have signed a guy who's another possible, when we've got guys on this team that I think you have to just start developing internally? Listen, what'd you draft Julian Phillips for if you can't turn him into a guy like Trendon Watford? Honestly, what did you draft Julian Phillips for if your goal isn't turn him into a Trendon Watford? Now, I get it, right? Like, you want to replace that roster spot. You want to put another player in there. You want to try and be like, but at the end of the day, right? Like, if you're going to go after a player, go after a bigger, I mean, you're basically adding money back into that player exception. And to me, that 1.8 that Marco adds back in gives us a little bit more flexibility with it. I would rather see you go out and kind of, I don't want to say wait on it, but I really do believe there's going to be like a waiting period, or not the player exception, I'm sorry, the mid-level exception. I do believe that the Bulls are kind of going to wait this thing out and see kind of what the end of the free agency market looks like, because there's a lot of names still out there that just nobody's throwing money at, which means the price is going down. That's the only way, right? And maybe a lot more moves will come after the Dame deal is done. Maybe you'll see a lot more. I think there'll be a large influx of moves once that's done and everybody kind of knows, okay, this is how teams are going to be built. Now we got to add this, blah, blah, blah. But for me, I like Trendon Watford's game. I like the defender that he can be, but isn't that what we want Julian Phillips to turn into? Isn't that what we want? And I mean, better than that, right? Like, I get it. He's 22, young guy, power forward. You can put him out there right now, but we want to see more from P. Will. We want to see more from Dalen Terry. We want to see more from all of these guys, right? And unless you believe that they're not the right guy, unless you believe that you can't develop these guys, then I don't think that going out and replacing somebody with that Marko Simonovic roster spot right now is the best move for the Bulls to make. If anything, heck, give that roster spot to somebody who, I don't know, you picked up in the undrafted free agency market, or maybe a Justin Lewis. Also a guy you picked up in the undrafted free agency market, right? Like, I don't know if any of these guys end up being the end all be all player. But after those 15 games, right, if you're on a two-way contract, after 15 games, you have to be put on the regular roster. I would rather see somebody prove themselves that's already in this organization than just go add another guy who's a question mark. I get you got to take your swings. I get you got to, and if you swing and miss, it sucks, right? But you know what sucks more to me? That it seems right now that we're swinging and missing on a guy who was drafted 7th overall, on a guy who was drafted 4th overall, on a guy who was drafted 18th overall. Those are the swing and misses that piss me off more than anything. I like what Watford could do. I think that, I mean, listen, he was basically 17 points a game in college. He was a scorer. He's a guy that could score. But I would love to see the Bulls develop internally. Let me know how you guys feel in the comments below. I'll be down there talking with you guys as well. As always, man, it's your boy Pat the Designer, back at it again to continue watching our Chicago Bulls content. Click the links on the screen or check the links in the description below. Ayo, Chicago! Y'all stay safe out there, man. Peace.